Hello, friends, and welcome to another video lesson from DBOS Talks. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified of new uploads. We're in a playlist called From Excel to SQL, and in this video, we'll be learning how to query data from a table. When we query a table in both, in SQL at least, it's like you're asking the database a question to for it to be able to fetch the specific data that you want in the specified format or optionally some filtering conditions being added into the command. So we will be looking at both how it is done in Excel as well as in SQL. Okay, so in Excel, as you know, if we look at the data of a table, usually the data is already available. All of it is already shown by default. So you're looking at a table called employees in Excel, and it already shows you all the columns as well as all the rows of data of that table. And if for whatever purpose you want to only selectively display or view certain columns, you can do that in Excel by one way is hiding a column, isn't it? Like say, if I only wanted to see this column called emp ID, then I would hide the rest using this kind of manipulation. Okay. And similarly, if I only want to see a single row, then I would probably hide it in this manner. Okay. Another way to do that is by filtering, which you probably are familiar with. So you'll go to data and then you will filter, and you can also do some kind of filtering. Okay, but that is how it is being done in Excel. So again, by default, Excel will show you everything unless you do some manipulation like hiding columns or rows or filtering or doing conditional formatting. Okay. So in SQL, which is the language used to communicate with a database, there is something similar. So okay, so viewing data using SQL, you will be using select. The command is select to query data. Okay. So let's look at a table. And before that, sorry, let's look at the syntax for the select command. I've used this in a previous video on the same playlist, but it's good to get familiar with it because select is actually probably the most commonly used command in SQL. Okay, it's used for getting data, querying data. So querying a table's data, you can do querying data of a single table or multiple tables. But let's start with a simple, okay? One table. So to query all columns of a table, again, if you haven't seen my previous videos, I suggest you do that because it will give you some background, some groundwork for you to understand the terminologies in here, like tables, columns, and rows, and data types. So they have been touched on in the first two videos of this playlist. Okay, so when we want to query all the columns of a table, then we will use this command, select asterisk from table name or names. The asterisk there, although it sounds very, looks familiar, it's like a wildcard character that we use in Unix, Linux, and DOS. It serves something similar, but not exactly the same. So it means selecting all the columns. So when we say select asterisk, you're telling the database to give you or to display all the columns of that table that you're mentioning after the from clause. Okay, so the syntax is select, that is a command, and then asterisk means all the columns of that table, and then from is another command. It's a from clause, and then you will specify the name of one or more tables which are comma separated, and then terminate the whole thing with a semicolon. That is for Oracle SQL. Okay, if you are, however, going to just, instead of selecting everything, all the columns, you only want to selectively just query or display specific columns of that table, then you can do it by specifying those columns in the select list. So select column names, which are comma separated, and then from the from clause, and then followed by the table name or names. Okay, so let's start by looking at one such table. which I have used also in previous videos. Select asterisk from employee. So I'm saying select all the columns from that table called employees. Okay, so it will give you the data in that the from the table employees, and it will show you all the columns, the vertical elements, as well as all the rows of data. So you can see the table has 5 rows of data, and you can also see that it looks familiar because it really is an equivalent of what you have seen in the Excel sheet I was showing earlier in the video. Okay, so it's also so that you can see the similarity or the parallelism between using Excel and SQL. So it is, those are 2 ways of viewing data, manipulating data even. Okay, at this point, we're learning how to view data or query data. Okay, so I'm saying in Excel by default, everything is displayed is the equivalent of the select statement, select asterisk, selecting all the columns from employees, which is the table name. Okay, since I don't give an any where condition for now, it is also displaying all the rows of that table. Okay, but again, do remember the asterisk in the select statement pertains to the all the columns, not all the rows. Okay. It is only incidentally giving you all the rows because there is no where clause, which we will be touching on in subsequent videos after this one. Okay. For now, that's the command. Select asterisk for employees. It will give you all the columns of that table. Now, if you want to selectively just display certain or specific columns of the table, you can do so by replacing your asterisk with the specific column name. In this case, I only want to display one column, which is called MID. If we go to Excel, that would be the equivalent of saying, like I showed you earlier, I hid all the others, and then I'm just showing one column. So we can do that in SQL by doing select, and then in the select list, you're specifying that column that you want to view or to query. So in this case, MID. Select MID from employee. So when I do that, it will only show me all the values in all the rows for a specific one specific column, which I have mentioned in the select list, which is MID. Okay, it happens. So now you are seeing one column of data, the data belonging to MID column, as well as 5 rows of data, which is everything that's in that table called employees. Okay, so you've seen that in SQL, and then you've seen that also how it works or what's the behavior in Excel. Now, let's just say you want to display multiple columns, not just that MID, then you can also do so. Nothing fancy. You simply have to specify the columns and they are comma separated. So nothing complicated here. Okay, so select, this is called the select list. You will be specifying the columns that you want to display. So if it's more than one, it will be comma separated. If it is everything, then you will use the asterisk. Okay, so in this case, I'll be displaying 3 columns of the table employees. Okay, something is missing from employees. So now we are, no, sorry, 4 columns. So I'm displaying the values from 4 columns, MID, surname, given name, and middle name. But because I have no where condition, like I mentioned, that will be taken up in subsequent videos, then it doesn't filter the data as far as the number of rows is concerned. So this table actually contains only 5 rows. So it is showing all the rows, but only some of the columns. Why some of the columns? Because I have specified them explicitly in the select list. I have specified the column names here in the select list rather than the default or the earlier example when I was using an asterisk after the select command. Okay, so just to give you a peek into what would happen if I use the where clause, I will give you a sample right here, but it will be a stretch if we go too deep with this one because there'll be a lot of possibilities techniques on how to use the where condition or the where clause. So I'll just show you here the usage of the where clause here. In this case, I'm introducing to you a should column called row num, which is short for row number. So this is Oracle specific. And what it is doing is it will limit the number of rows it will display to you when you execute the select statement. In this case, where row num is less than 3 means it will only display what's less than 3, that's 2. 2, and anything less than that. So it will only display at most 2 records, okay, 2 rows of data. And that's what it does. So similarly, if you want to display, let's say, 4 rows of data, then you'll probably say less than 5. So what's less than 5 is at the most is 4, but it could be 3, 2, 1, or 0, depending on the availability of the data in the table and also the ones that are matching your where clause. So in this case, the only where condition I am adding to the select statement is that which will limit the number of rows it will display. So in this case, where row num is less than 5, so the most it can show me is 4 rows. All right. Like I said, it depends on the availability of the data. If there is really no data there that is matching the condition, if it's an empty table, then whatever you do, then it will only just give you what it has. Okay. So we have seen how data is getting viewed in Excel as well as in SQL. And we've seen the similarities and the slight differences between the two. And we've seen that in Excel, to display data, by default, everything is displayed. And if we want to selectively display certain columns and rows, we can do some hiding of columns and rows, or maybe filtering, or some other conditional formatting, which we will not go very deeply into because that's Excel. I'm talking more about the SQL. So you can make that jump, that transition from having the Excel knowledge and going to SQL. Okay, so the similarities are that there's a concept of a table, the use of a table, which is used to store data in both Excel and SQL databases. And also the columns and rows and data types are there. But in this particular video, we touch on how to display data using the select command and together with the from clause, which is used to specify the table or tables from which to get the data that you need. And additionally, I showed you, you got to have a peek at how to use the where clause in the select statement. Okay, thank you for watching and listening. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell, and I'll be seeing you in the next video.